Ford College Board of Trustees meeting. Today is September 20th, 2021. We're going to call the meeting to order at 7:03. Could I have the roll call, please?
Trustee Hussein Berry.
Here.
Trustee Patrick D'Ambrosio.
Here.
Trustee Roxanne McDonald.
Here.
Trustee Adam Mosep here. Trustee Mary Petlishkov.
Here.
Trustee Irene Watts.
Here.
Chair James Thorpe.
Here. Next item.
Approval of minutes. Approval of the following minutes of the Board of Trustees. Policy Committee meeting, August 9th, 2021. Regular meeting, August 9th, 2021. Financial Stability Ad Hoc Committee meeting, August 10th, 2021. Make any necessary corrections and move to approve these minutes.
So move.
Support?
Who made the
Okay,
motion?
I had my head down and I couldn't tell if that was Pat. All right.
Okay.
Motion was made by Trustee D'Ambrosio, supported by Trustee McDonald. Any corrections? All right. Hearing none, may I attach a unanimous roll? Great. Please attach unanimous roll. Next item.
Recognition and acknowledgements.
Thank you, President Cavalhuna, Chair Thorpe, and members of the board. My name is Kevin Matucci. I am from Redford, Michigan, and I am a 2012 graduate of Thurston High School.
Kevin, you are welcome to take your mask off if you'd like
Okay.
while you speak.
Can you hear me fine with that
Yeah,
on?
I can, and you don't have to take it off. I just
Okay.
wanted you to know you're welcome. Friends, you can do jumping jacks and handstands if you want to.
Thank you.
And I know that with your background, you probably could do that, but I just wanted you
He
to.
went to my high school, so I,
I'm sorry
Oh,
to
I did?
interrupt you, Mr.
Oh,
Matucci.
Sorry. Sorry about that. I attended Wayne State University in the fall of 2014. In the spring of 2015, I ended up dropping out of school after struggling and went into the workforce. During that time, I always imagined myself going back to higher learning, but I was afraid that I would end up struggling again. In the fall of 2020, I decided to give myself another chance and attended Henry Ford College. I was nervous about attending school again, but I felt more motivated to succeed this time. In my second attempt at higher education, I ended up succeeding at a level I never thought possible. Since attending Henry Ford College, I have achieved goals which to me seemed unachievable. I have been inducted into the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society and have been accepted as a member of the National Society of Leadership and Success. As of this fall semester, I am also an officer member of the HFC Student Council. I plan to transfer to a four-year university to further pursue studies as a pharmacist, and I've received offers from other universities throughout Michigan and the country. With the help of those around me, as well as the administration and teachers at Henry Ford, I was able to achieve my dream of returning and succeeding in higher education. HFC has made it possible for me to achieve the potential I have always imagined. Now I am pleased to read this month's HFC Board Acknowledgements. Number 1. Chardon Claiborne, full-time HFC faculty, co-authored on the recently published article, Anti-Racism, Glossary for Education and Life, in the August 4th, 2021 publication of the Journal of College Academic Supports Programs. Congratulations, Chardon. Number 2. Dr. Tariq A. Ramadan, adjunct faculty in the School of Liberal Arts at WSU, recently wrote and landed a $380,000 civil rights grant for the nonprofit organization Project We Hope, Dream and Believe, that he worked with based in Inkster. The grant will be used to preserve and transform the one-time Inkster home of Malcolm X into a museum that highlights the life and the legacy of the world-renowned human rights activist. Dr. Ramadan is also the research manager and grant writer for the same Inkster-based community outreach and nonprofit organization. Congratulations, Dr. Ramadan. Number 3, Enrollment Services and Advising partnered in August to offer drop-in assistance to students in our virtual welcoming center lobby daily, as well as offering several days of extended service hours. The Enrollment Services team assisted with admissions, orientations, placement, financial aid, registration, records, and payment, all in one convenient online space. As a result, A, Enrollment Services served 1,045 students via Zoom, 779 students via email. This is a far greater volume of students than we could have served with only an in-person service and with social distancing guidelines. B, Enrollment Associates handled 6,442 calls in August. Despite being short-staffed, the team worked productively in a remote operation with extended hours to serve students. This reflects a significant increase in volume over previous years. C, Academic advising and student success saw an increase in students served of 80% compared to the same period in 2020. This was a result of additional Zoom appointment and drop-in sessions offered. D, The testing team proctored 529 tests virtually in August and had nearly 2,000 email correspondence with students. A big thank you to all departments across campus as they work together to serve our students and help them start the fall semester. Thank you for the opportunity to be this month's reader. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
Well, Kevin, I would like to ask a few questions, and I appreciate you taking the opportunity to speak with us. Dare I am excited to hear about your future. I know it's going to be bright, and I just want to say on behalf of this entire board how proud we are that you did do what you said, give yourself a second chance. Some of us never get those, but many of us don't have the courage to try them like you did. And I hope and I trust that your success will continue here. But, and I encourage you to continue in your goal of going on to a four-year institution after Henry Ford College. I wonder if you've thought about where that might be.
I haven't thought exactly where it would be, but I have received offers from many schools in Florida. I even received, I think my biggest one was from one in New York. What was it? Oh yeah, Columbia University actually gave me an email. So
Just a little shot.
just a little one, yeah. So that one was interesting. We'll see if I follow up on that though. But maybe I'll reattend Wayne State again and probably continue where I left off. We'll see.
Okay, well, to have options is a sign of your success. Not many folks have options, and it sounds like you've got so many you can't even count them.
Thank you.
What about your time here? I often ask students like you who present, and many of them don't have stories as inspiring as yours, so thank you for sharing yours. But I many times ask them, is there anyone here at HFC who's helped you, that you remember their name, or maybe even just a description of their job that really made a difference for you? Because you really did. You did something most people can't do, which is start in higher education, have a setback, and then get back on track. Is there anyone who helped you particularly in that, or was it just all bootstraps for you?
Yeah, a lot of it was probably my family. I would say that, especially with the pandemic, I started during kind of the beginning of the pandemic when it was difficult for me to, especially since I haven't really seen anyone in person here. I only have like one class in person. Everything's been online. So it's been really hard to, forge those connections with professors since I haven't really seen them. And a lot of the stuff has also been asynchronous as well. So for a lot of the classes I've taken, I haven't seen anyone's face other than, maybe the occasional, PowerPoint presentation. But the one class I have had in person, which I currently am having, the instructor is Dr. Jennifer Warren, and she's doing a pretty great job as it is of, it's anatomy and physiology. And so she's doing a great job, and her passion really shows during the presentations. So I like that a lot. Other than that, it's mostly been support from my family, friends, and just others around me,
Yeah, well, I want you to know that everyone on this board and me and there, when you were sitting there, there's several people sitting behind you who are either vice presidents or leaders in our college. I'm speaking for all of them when I say we're those people who are around you, and we're supporting you also. And it is a great point of pride to hear your story and have you present. And of course, please do reach out to me anytime I can help, or if you don't mind, just reach out to me the next couple semesters, tell me where you're headed, because people like you are the reason why we're here.
Thank you.
Trustee Watts.
No, Kevin, thank you for sharing your story, because it's not easy when you try something and it doesn't quite work out. So I wanted to know for those, and you said that in 2015 you're struggling. Looking back, what are some of the lessons that you think were lessons learned, or moments where you thought that you couldn't go any further, and what made you really inspired to come back? So I guess number one, lessons learned.
I think for the main lesson was I didn't really put my full effort towards it. I didn't take it seriously enough, honestly. And that was something that was hard to come to grips with. It was sort of, graduating high school was a flash, and then all of a sudden you're in university, and the first couple months I did do pretty well, but over time, if I'm being honest, a lot of it was just me being complacent and not following up on things I should have done. I had some small family setbacks, but not enough to warrant, what happened. But I think of what really inspired me to go back was seeing others around me who did go back. I know a couple of family members who eventually did go back and did succeed. A lot of my family does come from abroad, so when they come here, it's always a struggle for them. But watching them succeed without barely knowing the language was enough to say, I can give it another shot.
I see, thank you. And you said that you came from Wayne State. What made you choose Henry Ford College?
I don't know exactly. They had a decent program for pre-pharmacy and one of the only few ones for community colleges around. I know Schoolcraft had one, but the Henry Ford one looked better, especially the classes and the way they were structured, so I went with that. And again, I just needed to choose a community college around me, and Henry Ford was there.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your story, Kevin.
Thank you.
Trustee McDonald.
I also want to thank you for sharing your story. It's been very inspirational. I noticed as you spoke, you just exude self-confidence. And has that always been your way? Or did some of that come with the successes that you were able to attain?
A lot of it came with my past experiences, I would say. So a big one I've done is in the past, I worked for the U.S. Census, going door to door during the pandemic.
I've done that as well, so.
That was an experience. And that definitely gets you prepared to speak in front of people because you're speaking in front of 100 people every day.
Absolutely.
And they don't want you to really be there for the most part. So that was always interesting. Other than that, I've worked at, in the past as managing a restaurant for a little bit. I also have like a little side job working for the city of Redford. I do the elections as a chair for a precinct, so I'm in charge of my own precinct there. So watching that process and helping people vote has also kind of inspired me. And you're also talking to people in line. There are a lot of them, they don't understand the process or they're nervous about voting for their first time. So it's great to just be able to connect with them, go over things and help them get out in a timely manner, as well as feel proud to have voted. That's another one of my major accomplishments.
Absolutely, and I thank you for doing that work because it's very important and it's going to be more difficult, I think, going forward, finding folks that will do it. So
Thank you.
Trustee Petlicoff.
Trying to get his attention. I'm glad to see a fellow graduate. I graduated a few years before you.
Only a few, that's good.
Like maybe 50. But that being said, are you currently employed full-time while you were taking?
I currently have a part-time job working for
Part-time?
Ford. I drive vehicles around. I'm a test driver.
So did you find actually this kind of advantageous to be taking a lot of online courses?
It would depend on the
Or-
course. For some of them, it was definitely advantageous. For some of my chemistry classes, it was really difficult. Yeah.
I was just wondering how the balance of in-person versus online.
I guess it would depend on the
experience.
class, if I would be honest with it.
Mhm.
Like, certain ones it was fine with. A lot of the English classes, it was okay. And even some of the introductory, like, economics courses were fine. But when it came to, like, higher level courses, like anatomy, physiology, and chemistry, it was really a struggle.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Kevin? Thank you very much for being here tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to. If
Okay.
you have other things you'd like to do.
All right, thank you.
Next item.
Next item is president's items.
Before we get into the president's items, we always talk about transparency, but you didn't tell us about something from yesterday. You want to share it now? So I don't have to say belated? Happy belated birthday, President Kevin.
We all missed this
He has no Facebook presence, so we don't see this stuff to remember.
Well, I didn't expect that, and when the chair starts with the phrase of that kind of opening, you get the president to perk up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I thought about this just the other day. This is the fourth birthday I've celebrated as your colleague, and wow, 4 years, a lot has changed, and it's been a really great part of my life to serve you all, and I just four holidays like that, you kind of look back and I'm not getting any younger, and I'm really proud of what you all have offered, which is the opportunity to interact with people like Kevin. And I didn't even really plan to talk much about that.
Good, because it sounds like you're planning another announcement that we're not wanting to hear.
No. In fact, what I wanted to talk about was the fall semester, because it's underway, and I tell some of my friends this is quite possibly the most difficult and odd fall semester I've ever had, except for the last fall, which says we're making progress. It's a little bit less difficult and a little bit less odd than it was last fall, and I think you even heard that from Kevin today. I think he's emblematic of the fact we are making progress. We are still serving students despite the challenges. And I'm really, really excited about the progress we are making, because now we're at 30% face-to-face, and we're seeing in the surveys we're putting towards our students that a number of them do prefer face-to-face. Some of them do prefer online, and as Trustee Petlichkoff's question elicited, some of them prefer a little bit of both for their life circumstances. But what I do continue to believe and see is that we're still serving those students in their path to a better life. And there are so many different paths that come through Henry Ford College for that, which is why I was so excited to have Kevin share his story. And the way we offer an opportunity to change one's life is what we focused on in the State of the College, and I appreciate some of you joining us on just earlier this month. And it was a focus on student success. And I think you're going to see that the college is going to spend some time for the next several months defining student success, because most people agree we're here for student success, and most people have a pretty strong idea about what student success looks like, but a lot of those different visions of student success are different. Probably none of them are wrong, but we do have to refine what we think is student success, and we are going to start doing that refinement, and then we're going to start focusing on those types of things we define as student success. And that is in keeping with what the board has asked the administration and the faculty and the staff to do, which is start up strategic planning and begin the process of doing that focus on student success and what it will look like. Now at Henry Ford College, the process for that is to ask the faculty senate to come together and give us some representatives from that body, and then along with the administration and other parts of the college that are not members of the faculty senate, to put together a strategic planning task force and begin the strategic planning process. And I am thankful for the faculty senate and its chair, Tony Perry, for identifying the individuals who will serve on that task force. The administration will be identifying individuals to serve on that task force quite quickly also. And we're going to be moving forward with what the board has asked, which is a report out and a plan by the end of this calendar year. So the work will be fast, but it will be intentional, and we started to have that discussion based on student success at the State of the College, and I appreciate this board being fully supportive of us focusing on student success, refining its definition, and then moving forward on some of the things I talked about in the State of the College about student success. I'll pause now and take any questions, and then I have only two more things that it may be, Mr. Chairman, the shortest president's items. It would have been for sure had you not caught me off guard. Any questions on anything I've said so far?
So when is the commencement for the strategic planning?
My plan is to have the members of that strategic task force identified by the end of this week. I have raised some eyebrows when I've said that I want the group to meet twice a week, every week, for at least an hour for each meeting, and to move quickly. So my hope is that certainly within 2 weeks, but hopefully even next week, the committee will start meeting.
Normally on the strategic plan, we've got a few members of the board. So are you going to need members of the board for that at this point, or let us know when you're ready?
The structure that's set up is based on a letter of agreement between 1650. The answer to your question is I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman. The structure of this committee is identified in a letter of agreement between the administration and the AFT 1650 from 2015, I believe. Dr. Rader is not, yes, from 2015. And we are honoring that, and it identifies a certain number of individuals from the faculty senate and from the administration. It does not identify whether a board member will be on there, and I absolutely want board input, and I don't have an answer for your question exactly yet, but I will report out to you the answer well before we start doing the heavy lifting.
Okay.
In the same lines, do we have community members who participate?
The LOA does not identify that. Of course, the administration has, the LOA says that the faculty senate will identify individuals from the faculty senate, and that the administration will identify I believe its own individuals. So there's some opening there, and I don't know the answer to that.
The reason we might have some of these questions is that several of the trustees were not around then the last time the strategic plan was done at the college level, nor were you. But from the P12, there has been both community participation and a few sitting trustees on there. So, Trustee
As
Pavlichkov?
somebody who was here for the last one, there wasn't community members. There were a couple of board members, but we didn't participate throughout the whole entire process. We were there at the beginning just to see how it was going to be structured and what was going to be focused on. And then we pretty much stepped aside while they went and did the heavy-duty lifting of crafting the plan, and then it was brought back to us. But there was no community members.
Were there student representation?
No.
Well, I think a strategic plan means that you need to include all of the stakeholders of the college. But I mean, I don't know how letter of agreement is being crafted.
Right.
The other thing that the board should be aware of is that the LOA merely dictates how the administration and the full-time faculty should interact on this question. But eventually, it is this board's prerogative to decide the strategic plan for the college. And we discussed this at some length at the board retreat, which was a public meeting of this board. And if this board wants additional or involvement in either the structure set out by the LOA between the AFT 1650 and the administration, or some involvement after that work or during that work, that's absolutely something we can discuss, because eventually it is the prerogative of this board to take this proposed strategic plan and endorse it or not. You can also see the last 3 renditions of the strategic plan on the website, and they outline the committees and the outcomes.
Any additional questions for President Kevlin on these items? Okay.
So, two short things. One, both of them are great news. One is, as usual, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would like to make comments about what I hope are successful action items on hiring of new teammates after the board acts on those. And then I wouldn't let a good opportunity to mention a birthday go without doubling down on that. So I believe we're only belated by about 4 days for Trustee Watts and her birthday. And the college has provided a gift that looks so well done and so sharp that it is clear I had nothing to do with it, and that the president's office did. And you know there are really only 2 souls in the president's office. If it wasn't me, then we know that Ms. Dimitriou is the one that Trustee Watts is speaking for all of us on the board. Happy birthday. We're glad you're on the team. And to put out a little bit of a teaser, we have, I believe, 2 birthdays coming in October. So you all can try to ferret out those answers, and if you can't, then I'll do what the chair has done to me today. I'll surprise those individuals on the meetings coming up. And that is the end of my report, Mr. Chairman.
Question?
All right. Is it on the
Happy
birthday item, or is
No,
it
no, it's not on it.
All right.
It's on the fall. You mentioned the fall enrollment. Can you give us just a quick synopsis
Yes.
compared to last fall?
Yes,
Thank you.
we budgeted to be flat from last fall, and we, at the census date, which is an imperfect time to count, but it's necessary to have a time to count. And when we look at the census date, we were down 1.89%, I believe. So almost 2% below where we had budgeted. And the reason I call that an imprecise date is because enrollment doesn't stop at the census date. It's not like that. There are other courses for which we can enroll, and that enrollment has continued. And the good news is we did have more enrollment that got us to what we eventually were at the census date last year. But there's no doubt enrollment is lower than we would like it to be, and there are economic consequences as a result of that. It is also good news that this college has run a very tight fiscal ship. We have, I believe every year, but if not every year, nearly every year I've served you, we have brought in expenses below what we budgeted. And I know that's the case for the year we just ended. And already in the 3 months of this current year, we're running below budgeted expenses. So the only way you can keep a balanced budget when you have less revenue as a result of less enrollment is to manage expenses, and we're doing that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for President Kevlin before we move on? Thank you very much. Next item?
Next item, discussion items. First one, Technology Investment Fund, TIF, Winter 2020. Is that supposed to be 2021? Proposed project?
No, that's right.
That's 2020, okay. Board Report 4605, Vice President Sapkowski. Is he here? Let me see.
I'll address this preliminarily, and then if the board has any questions that I can't answer, I will ask Dr. Nealon to answer questions in Vice President Sapkowski's stead, who endured a rather long visit to the dentist this late afternoon. He's well, but I gave him a pass on this, a well-deserved pass. This proposal is one that is an expensive proposal, but it is one that we initially put off because it is to take care of a place where we can bring public to view art of various types. In fact, I've seen the art in this gallery, and it's a great draw to the campus. But in 2020, we really did not want to draw folks to the campus, and our financial stability was in the middle of a pandemic. So we put this off, but as you might imagine, the faculty in this area and the community who enjoys this part of our campus were quite interested in us coming back to this once we did think there was a future of people coming back to the campus, and I do think that we're getting closer and closer to that. I do see my friend, faculty member Steve Glazer, who's here, and he's been patient, but he's also been consistent in asking me about this. And I have to also acknowledge an error. My intent was to have this before the board last month, and by an omission of just my own mistake, it wasn't here. But Trustee Mosip, you made mention of 2020. This was something that the administrative processes that are undertaken to get to this proposal did take place, and we're hoping for an expenditure like this in 2020, but through my request that we wait on it, we now see it in 2021. Any questions on that?
Did the amount change from the original request? Was there any inflation that we needed to account for in this?
I don't believe so. Mr. Glazer, is that? Yeah, I believe it was 200,000 then also. In fact, it caught my eye then because when this first came, we were. I mean, it seems like a decade ago, but just a year and a half ago, when the pandemic was hitting us full on, it seemed like things were changing day by day, and $200,000 was something that I thought would be something we needed to wait on. So I believe it was $200,000 at that time also.
Did you have an additional question?
No, it's more of a comment. I'm very happy to see this pass. I do think that the community and just humanity in general really benefits from the arts. And I think that we have a great space, there's a lot that we can do with it. And especially after coming out of the pandemic, I think people are realizing how important that is to their life and their happiness and just their well-being. So I'm glad to see it move forward.
Any additional questions for this item? Trustee Moses?
President Kavanaugh, do you know the current balance right now for the TIF fund?
Trustee Moses, I do not know that, but I'd be happy to give that to the board.
And were there recent meetings for the TIF committee?
I don't know the answer to
Okay.
that. What I have to say, Trustee Moses, is this gets to my radar as a result of the TIF process. I'm not often involved in the process as it moves up. But do I have any colleagues here who know the answer to that question?
I can tell a little bit.
Go ahead, Mr. Glazer. Can you come up?
Yeah.
And Mr. Glazer, I already kind of have introduced you, but if you
Yeah.
could introduce yourself and just
Hi,
explain.
I'm Steve Glazer. I teach in art and I'm faculty chair of fine and performing arts. The TIF committee operates twice a year, like fall and winter semester, and a budget is given out of I don't know the exact percentage, I don't know if Michael knows by chance, of student fees. And it's for technology improvement throughout the campus. This was allocated out of last year's budget, so that it has been held in escrow to fund this. So this is nothing out of the current budget.
Mr. Glazer, have you all held TIF meetings in the calendar year of 2021?
Earlier this year, yes, there was TIF committee meetings. Vicki Shepard, who's my colleague, is on that committee.
Okay. Did you all move things out of TIF?
I believe they did.
Yeah, I think they're on their way, but
Yes, they should be. So this is from last year's, and money was allocated for this out of last year's budget.
Sounds good. Yeah, I do echo Trustee McDonald's comments about the arts. It's very important to fund this. And I would imagine that multiple art exhibitions will be shown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, this will bring us up into the 21st century. The lighting is antiquated.
The
room is antiquated.
lighting's a little gloomy.
The whole room is.
Yeah.
This would be including totally up-to-date lighting. I think projection system for new media art, stuff like that. Stuff that you would want if you were starting from scratch and building a gallery on a campus in this day and age.
And which building is it going to be? I'm sorry.
This is in the Fine Arts Building.
Okay.
And the footprint's still gonna be the same.
Yes,
I'm gonna
yes.
take it. So we
Yes.
got the hallway and then
Yes.
the one room, and put lighting in the hallway too.
That I don't have control over, but needs it. Well, and it's like, there's many things in that building that need.
Thank you, Mr. Glazer.
Thank you.
Any additional questions on this discussion item? All right, next item.
Next item is citizen participation. Citizens wishing to address the board on agenda and non-agenda items for action who have submitted a blue card to the secretary may speak at this time. The board might not be in a position to respond to non-agenda items. Therefore, speakers should not anticipate an immediate response to their comments or questions. For the benefit of all concerned, do not mention the names of students or college employees. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. We have one citizen participation item from Ms. Leslie Winless. She would like to address the board about agenda items 6, D3 HR staff appointments.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so thank you to the Board of Trustees and President Cavaluna for allowing me time to speak tonight on agenda item 6D3, HR staff appointments. My name is Leslie Winless, and I am the president of the Support Staff Association, which is also known as the SSA, and is affiliated with TPOAM. Our union includes a little less than 200 frontline employees here at HFC. As you all may be aware, the SSA recently reached a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with the Board of Trustees. Going into negotiations, especially following a global pandemic, we knew that there was a dire need to address wage deficiencies and insecurity concerns. So we did not make the decision lightly to alter the language in Article 12A3, compensation principles for new hires. We deliberately chose to sympathize with the college's need to address HR concerns regarding recruiting and hiring new employees. However, we thought we made it unambiguous during negotiations and want to do so tonight on the record that with those changes was a verbal agreement to consult the union regarding hires that would be placed above a step 4 on the wage scale and or above incumbent employees. This did not happen before tonight's meeting. In some scenarios, as recent as this month, new employees are brought in as temporary hires pending the board approval. Imagine training someone for days or weeks, then suddenly the person's wages are publicly disclosed and they are higher than yours. I can tell you from personal experience that it is extremely difficult to feel like a valued employee and maintain a positive work morale. A quote I'd like to share is, "If you want to know what a man is like, take a good look at how he treats his inferiors, not his equals." I believe this to be true about organizations and their support staff employees. Almost 10% of our membership will be negatively impacted by the hires on today's agenda without any communication with the SSA or TPOAM. For these reasons, the SSA is in opposition of the approval of the HR staff appointments as presented tonight. This statement is not intended to be adversarial, rather an opportunity for us to learn and improve from this. Thomas Funk from TPOAM and I look forward to working collaboratively on solutions to address this present issue as well as to prevent it from occurring in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, next agenda item.
Next agenda item, special considerations for an item. Are there any action items on this agenda which board members or the president wish to discuss and vote on separately? If there are, we will exclude these from the motion below.
I don't see any.
I do have a question about number one.
But you don't need it pulled?
No polls, no.
All right. If you want to go ahead with the recommended action?
I just want to make sure that we have a lot of items, okay. Move to approve action items 1 through 5 as recommended in this agenda.
So moved.
Support?
We've got a motion by trustee Barry, supported by trustee McDonald. Trustee Moses, if you want to go ahead with your question?
So this is regarding the Blackboard software that we're installing or purchasing as a 5-year subscription. Is this going to replace Moodle, or is it going to work in conjunction with the current software that we currently have for online courses?
Thank you, Trustee Moses. I'm going to ask Vice President Dr. Nealon to address that question for me.
Yeah, Moodle is a learning management system. What Ally does is provides accessibility to that learning management system, as well as the college's website, share documents, and all the rest. So it will provide both captioning, texting, making sure that we're compliant with accessibility standards. It has little to do with Moodle except to make sure that it's accessible to all students. I'm going to ask really quickly Director Barry, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
If you can take your mask off at least so we can hear you better. Thanks.
Provide us with an institutional report, a baseline, so we know where we're spending in accessibility for our students. The
Okay. Trustee Moses, any additional questions on that?
No, I do not.
One thing that I was gonna point out to everyone is that we passed out some revisions pertaining to items 3 and 5. So the board's got those revisions, we'll be able to correct everything. Any additional discussion on any of the items before we call for a vote?
Mr. Chairman, I obviously don't have a vote here, but I would like to address a couple issues if I may.
Sure.
First, the chair did note some corrections in items 3 and 5, and I just want the record to be clear, especially with President Windlass's comments. I want it to be clear what the corrections are. They have nothing to do with what President Windlass has brought up. One was one of these, and for this employee's
That was the revised.
Yes, okay. There are 3 corrections. 2 of these do not relate to what Ms. Windlass, or President Windlass was bringing up, because they are simply an employee, or potential employee who the college was intending to hire after board approval, and that employee has since decided not to join the college. So they are now not in part of what the board is being asked to vote on. So that's one correction. And one correction is regarding the hire proposal for the business intelligence analyst, and the grade being changed from a proposed grade 8 to grade 7. I just want it to be clear what those 3 corrections were, and they do not relate to what President Windlass brought. The other thing, Mr. Chairman, that I wanted to do was to say, and I'm going to ask the board to consider changing the proposed action. I was not aware that President Windlass was concerned about the proposals here, and I have deep respect for her association and her as a person and as a leader, and I'll just be candid with the board. I meet with President Windlass and her predecessor often, and I take it very seriously when they think we're making a mistake. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree, and if that were simply the case, I would count this as a time where we would agree to disagree. But what I think I hear President Windlass saying is that, well, not a written agreement, there is some type of feeling of us not, as administrators, holding up what we understood to be the agreement we just agreed to. And so I just can't ask this board to move forward on those things with the risk of, right after signing now a ratified agreement, with the president of that association saying we're not holding up our bargain. I don't know the details of it, so I can't give you any more details about it. I do need to meet, and I will meet with President Windlass right away to find out the details of it. But I've looked down this list, just having been candidly surprised by this, and what I would like to ask one of you to consider is an amendment to the proposed motion that would remove the employees on this list that would go into the SSA association. And I think that would be fair and clear enough to still have an understanding for the public as to what you would be doing. And then I don't do this lightly. These are positions that need to be filled, and they're, many times you see me asking for board movement on issues because between board meetings, when we want to hire someone, especially these frontline staff members, it helps the people who are doing those jobs right now to have help come in. So I need to ask you to consider to amend the proposed action to not move on the positions that would be in SSA. And I also, I can't ask you for your approval of this, but I will give you a heads up that if I can meet with President Windlass and resolve this concern, I very well may be coming to you quickly, maybe even with a P12 proposal for these. And of course, the board's under no obligation to follow that. But I do ask you to consider that I think it would be unwise to take a person like President Windlass's. She's saying we're not holding up our end of the bargain, and she's a person who's always been good and truthful. We may end up disagreeing with her, but I need time to figure that out.
Can
Mr.
I-
Chair, since I moved on the motion, I will continue with moving on this motion as amended by President Cavallino.
Can I just ask a question, though?
Well, do we need a second to
second,
that?
yeah.
And do you have to repeat it, or can we just use the words that he used?
I'm hoping somebody was taking some good notes.
Yes, there were notes taken.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we need
Who
support on it
seconded the
first?
motion?
I would also
Trustee-
support.
All right, trustee McDonald. Go ahead, trustee
Okay,
Pellishman.
I have one question for President Cavallino, and this is not to make a judgment call on any of this conversation, but I just want to understand the process. When were these made public so that President Winless was aware of these hires? Was this something that she had knowledge of days ago or just today, so that we could have maybe had addressed this in a timelier fashion than now at the table?
Ms. Dimitri was telling me that Friday is when these were made public. So, one business day ago.
All right, can we do something to ensure that there is more time for the union heads, so that we don't have this occur again? That they're given a day or two to review and bring up the concern prior to a board meeting, that they don't make it to the agenda potentially without having these kinds of vetting processes being done at the last minute?
Yes, we can, and candidly, that is a process that's always ongoing because of rolling hiring.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is, and we saw this a lot when there was a spike in faculty hiring, if you recall, last summer.
And it was last minute,
It was
yeah.
last minute because what ends up happening is that groups are trying to get hiring completed before this board's meeting, so as to not miss the meeting, because if you miss a meeting, then you miss four
Right.
weeks of, and
That's-
particularly these frontline staff positions, they often come in at the very last minute because that's when the homework's due, basically. And if we want to move it back, we certainly can try. And I hear that's what you're asking, and frankly, I would have preferred that. I don't know the details of this.
Right.
And I don't know if these decisions were made literally Thursday. But I hear your point, and I take it as.
Because, for this very reason, that is now pushing this off again another potential several weeks, and rather than having been addressed sooner, rather than later. Thank you.
October 12th.
Any additional discussion on the action items? All in favor of approving the amended action items, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous roll on that. Next item, please.
Next item, Board of Trustees business, acknowledgement of correspondence.
Other than the mailer that's showing up on the, which is nice.
It's good to see 5101.
5101's open and ready for business. I missed
Any-
my food last year.
Any additional correspondence? All right, next.
Board committee reports.
The policy committee, I think, met right before this. Do we have a report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the chairman of that committee asked me to report out for it. I will be very brief. The committee heard from the chair of the Faculty Senate and Vice President Amy Clark, who's also general counsel, on what the Faculty Senate is proposing to this board and the administration is supporting in a modest change to the academic integrity policy. And that policy will be circulated to the entire board as soon as tomorrow. And with the direction from the chair, we can either have another presentation to the board on that point by the faculty chair, Dr. Anthony Perry, who presented to the policy committee today, or after seeing it, we depending on what the chair directs the administration as to a presentation. But excuse me, my belief is that the policy committee had vigorous questions about it and a clear understanding of the purpose and at least a tacit understanding and support of that proposal. The policy committee also heard from General Counsel Amy Clark on the ongoing process of updating and evaluating the college's policies that are under the jurisdiction of the board. And no substance in proposal is coming forth on that yet. And that is a report out from today's policy committee that lasted just under an hour.
All right, Trustee Moser?
Yeah, the Financial Stability Ad Hoc Committee met on the 14th of September virtually, and we had a great presentation by VP Rhonda DeLong on marketing and recruitment as well. We are anticipating to have our last meeting next month virtually as well. And some recommendations will be coming forward to the board.
Thank you. The other one that I would mention is that the college's foundation met, it's probably 2 weeks ago now, time goes so quick. It was a pretty status quo type meeting is what I would say. There was some discussion about fundraising that's going on, capital campaign, I believe. And I know Dr. Chapman did a presentation with some of the programs we've been doing with is it Detroit Promise? Things like that. So that also happened. Any other committee reports? Next.
Request for information and/or future agenda items.
Trustee Watts.
When Kevin was up here, I know that he had mentioned that some of the classes he took virtually were pleasant, while others I think were a little struggle. So I'm just curious what the breakdown of face-to-face, I know you said 30% now, but how many of those classes are in humanities versus other ones? And just to see what the breakdown of those would be.
Yes, Trustee Watts, I can get you that information. I'm in my mind, I'm picturing the multicolored graph that Interim Vice President Holly Diamond's office puts out. I don't think it breaks them down by curriculum. Is that right?
The report was updated today, and it does now.
Okay.
So we'll have it tomorrow for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Boy, can't ask for better than that.
Any other future agenda items or requests for information? One that I would mention, we had talked about earlier today, and it was about I'd say the structure of the committee for the strategic planning. It's true that this board would be the one that would be approving it, so it would be helpful to make sure that it's going in a direction that we agree with before it gets in front of us. So maybe we can all think about what we think would be a good representation for the college, and I can bring it back to you, President Cavalluni. Anything else on that? Trustee Petlicoff.
I hate to bring this one up, since it seems to be such a sensitive topic, but I know President Biden had the vaccine mandate of over 100. Does the college fall underneath that requirement, and are we prepared to move on that if necessary?
The answer to your first question about whether we fall underneath it, I think the answer is yes, assuming that it is applicable or legally valid.
That they, right.
I'm not making a judgment about that. I'm just
Me
saying.
either.
My basic understanding of it would be yes. However, that basic understanding needs more time to be informed by several entities, most of which probably is the Michigan OSHA.
Okay.
And I don't have an answer to that yet. This is a topic that is being discussed at the Michigan Community College Association, so
Okay.
that there's at least a general
Consensus.
posture from the state's entire group of community college vis-a-vis the federal government. Your second question was, are we prepared to do that? I can't answer that question, Trustee Petlicoff, because I simply can't fully understand what compliance would look like. I mean, it makes sense to say make sure everyone's vaccinated. That I can comprehend, but What making sure everyone does that and what, if any, exemptions exist, I do not have a full understanding on. So I can't say to you, yes, we do have a plan ready to roll that out. I can say to you that we have been very well served by the Return to Campus core team that's working on these issues now, and the teams that predated that dealt with the plan to deal with the COVID-19 crisis, of which your colleague serves on. So I do have full confidence that, well, I know, in all these curveballs we've been thrown, I am utterly confident that we have met the task of understanding them and complying.
Well, that's kind of an answer.
Part of that is also, if there is refusal, there's testing allowed. So that's another component that would have to be dealt into.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, next item.
Just one question for
Sure.
President Cavaluna. For the employee handbook or presentation that we've had, is that something that's gonna come to the board as a presentation, or?
So that I'm clear, Trustee Moses, because we're working on two things. One is we're working on an employee handbook, and then another is we're working on a diversity in hiring philosophy.
Correct, both of them.
Both of those, okay. The diversity, equity, inclusion, and some folks add justice or other acronyms to the back of that. But generally speaking, the diversity philosophy in hiring is a plan that was presented to a small group of trustees, and I believe that was recorded. And I'm happy to share that recording with any of the trustees. And if the board wants to have that presentation again, it would be the same as what was given to the small group. So that's the answer on that. Right now, that philosophy is going through a vetting process that is almost done. The employee handbook is an ongoing and heavier lift that I am not ready to tell you when we're going to be ready for that. But it is an ongoing process, and it is. The majority of that work is bringing disparate pieces of information to one place for the employees, most of which already exists, and bringing it together. So that one is less of an intellectual lift about building processes. It's more of a aggregating process. But I don't have an answer for you about when we plan to have that. I will get an answer for you about what is the timeline for that, and I certainly will show the board. Again, much of this will be things that the board would already be able to see now on the website. But if the board wants a presentation on that,
For the employee handbook, I don't think so,
Okay.
but for the diversity philosophy, I think that it would be great to have some kind of presentation once everything is vetted, especially the legalities.
Okay. Happy to comply.
Trustee McDonald.
Just along that same lines, I was part of the small group that saw that presentation, and I was wowed. I was absolutely wowed. And I want to make sure that some credit is given, and the name totally escapes me right now, so please. Grace Davis, thank you very much. So, great
lucky
work,
to have her.
great work.
Yeah.
So, and again, I was wowed, so I think that should, we should have another presentation on that, for anyone that did not see it.
You sent it to us.
Yeah, I
You
saw,
did send it
I
to
saw
us.
the link.
Yes.
I watched it.
All right, ready to
Next
move on?
item? Yep.
I'm ready.
Okay, board member commentary.
Trustee Barry.
I was planning to make a comment regarding one of our employees, but since the gentleman is here in the room, I'll just go ahead and personally thank him, Mr. Gary Wojo, and I'll stop right there so I don't butcher his last name. Gary's part of our campus safety team, and he stepped up to the plate a few weeks ago on a Saturday, gave up 8 hours of his time at a youth football program that we have locally. So, Gary, on behalf of the 85 football players, I say thank you. I appreciate you.
Additional comments? One that I will bring up, make sure the community is aware. The board had requested a 360-degree survey to be completed for President Cavalluna as part of his every 3 years, it's part of the evaluation. Random invitations went out to that at the beginning of this summer. We had a chance to compile everything, and we've been presented with it both with the board and with President Cavalluna. So just want to let everyone know we have completed the 360 survey, and those results have now been shared with us. Any additional comments? President Cavalluna?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm looking at the clock.
Well, you all directed that we hire a couple folks today that I just need to identify. Several of them were part of the amended motion, so I won't talk about them. But you have hired Jacob Krogel, who's been with the institution for several years, and this is a significant promotion for him. It's part of a reorganization of that really important area, the Institutional Research and Reporting Department, and it's also in line with a memorandum that Vice President Lori Gonko gave to me, and I've now shared with you in the cabinet about the plans for that department. And I just want to compliment Jacob for taking on this big role, because as we begin to focus on student success, our institutional research department, like any institution that really excels in student success, will have to be a pivotal player. And Jacob took on that mantle with going for this role. And of course, he's served in this role when the college was really in a lurch. We had a vacancy in that role, and he served in the interim role for a number of months. And not only did he lead that department through a difficult time, but he also had the guts to tell his superior, Vice President Gonko, and me, that he not only wanted to keep a couple of the positions that were also vacant until they could do the analysis of the department to get the ship straight before we moved forward. He put in the work to get the work done during the low staff. And I'm excited that he's taken a higher leadership role, and I'm glad that Dr. Gonko is now on to the second department she's trying to work with. As a vice president, you know she did great work in building the HR department. Now she's working on the Institutional Research and Reporting department. And in that department, she's also recommended, and now you have hired someone who you may not know. I haven't had a chance to meet this person yet, but Ahmad Abdul Aziz is going to be joining us as a business intelligence analyst, and he's going to be helping a lot with a lot of this data that we're going to try to compile to understand where we can grow in student success. And it's particularly a point of pride to have this young man join us, because he just recently graduated from the Henry Ford Early College in 2020. He's a student, I believe, at U of M Dearborn, and now he's a full-time employee with a healthy salary at Henry Ford College. And he's going to be right in the thick of things where this college tries to position itself as the leader on student success for the entire region. And he's a product of our own good work already. So these are two hires that I'm excited about, and I hope you are too. And I'm now done.
While you were going through that, there was something that came back to me that I wanted to comment on. This is going to be quick. I was looking at the picture of the Board of Trustees out there, and it's still from a while ago.
Pre-pandemic.
So maybe next month we'll get a picture of the new board, since we're finally meeting in person. So get dressed up.
And put your mask on.
We'll take
Not-
them off
not for the photo.
picture. Yeah.
Next item.
Future meeting dates, Monday, October 11th, P to 12, Board of Education meeting, 7 p.m. at the Frank Franchi Boardroom at the Administrative Service Center. Tuesday, October 12th, Financial Stability Ad Hoc Committee meeting, 5:30 p.m. virtual. Monday, October 18th, 2021, HFC Board of Trustees meeting, 7 p.m. at the Administrative Services and Conference Center in the Rosenau Boardroom.
Everyone have a great evening. We're adjourned.
Yes, happy birthday. I am putting it in my calendar for next year.
There are